Today's episodes are good examples of one of the Twilight Zone's most prevalent themes. Be careful what you wish for. Let's get to it, shall we?
Oh, I'm feeling very depressed.
It is an area which we call the Twilight Zone.
Ad executive Martin Sloan is taking a mental health break from his life in New York City and stops at a gas station, where he chooses to be rude to the worker there.
How about some service?
A little quiet.
I'm sorry.
After the worker tells him it will take a while to give him an oil change and a lube job, Martin demonstrates his inability to read a sign and drops the name of the episode.
That's walking distance, isn't it?
We get a nifty mirror transition to Martin arriving in his hometown of Homewood, where he stops in for an ice cream and soda and reminisces about his past. It becomes obvious very quickly that something isn't quite right about the town, but Martin is painfully oblivious to this for the next few scenes, where he sees the town completely unchanged, learns from little Ronnie Howard that his old house is still standing and still called the Sloan House, that there's another Marty Sloan in town, and more. He acts like a creep in the playground and finds Marty Sloan carving his name in the same place the older Martin Sloan carved his name as a boy. He then goes back to the Sloan house and finds his parents somehow still living there, but they have no idea who he is. He then goes to a neighbor showing off his brand new 1934 Roadster straight off the assembly line, and then, finally, Martin begins to suspect he's gone back in time. I get that time travel isn't exactly an everyday experience for most people, but the fact that it takes Martin this long to figure out what's going on makes me wonder what kind of 1950s designer drugs he was doing back at that ad agency. After a commercial break that turns day to night, Martin goes back to his house and runs into his father. Martin explains who he is and brushes past Dad, saying he just wants to get some rest after a long day. So, what's his plan exactly? Is he gonna go sleep in his little race car bed? And what about the other Marty? I mean, I think the twist in this episode is gonna be that he has some kind of brain damage. Which is exactly how his father treats him, but in the kindest possible way. When his mom comes out, Martin figures the best course of action is to violently grab her by the arms and shout in her face things about his childhood. He also tries showing off his various forms of ID, but Mom and Dad won't look at them. It's not like they had photo ID back in the day anyway. He then remembers that he has a doppelganger in this timeline, so he runs off to the merry-go-round, where he sees Marty having a perfectly good time happily enjoying his childhood. The older Martin then starts chasing him like a lunatic, causing the kid to fall off the ride and hurt his leg, which also hurts the older Martin because of time travel rules. He then reveals his plan was just to tell his younger self to enjoy his childhood, which, as noted, the kid was already doing before the creepy old man started chasing him. With Marty and the other kids gone, Dad comes to the older Martin, now convinced by his wallet that the whole crazy story is true, proving that Martin got his stupid from his mother's side. Dad offers some wisdom about not clinging to the past, and then Martin magically returns to the present day, limps back to his car, and presumably resumes his unfulfilling life as an ad executive in the Big Apple. I can't deny this episode is both saccharine and cheesy, but I love it. It delivers its well-worn message in a really effective way, and I do think that, despite his character's obtuseness, Gig Young is great as the adult Martin. A hat tip should also go to Frank Overton as his dad, because he nails that final speech and makes the entire thing work.
Beauty history is being made tonight. This is the first new form of lipstick in 40 years. It's Lip Quick by Richard Hudnut, the world's first roll-on lipstick.
Our second episode introduces us to the hypochondriac Walter Bediger, a generally awful human being who is dismissive of his doctor, whiny to his wife, and convinced that he's always dying. Even his doctor has had enough of this.
Mr. Bediger, there's nothing wrong with you except these ailments you manufacture for yourself. Your pains are imaginary.
As the doctor leaves, he writes a script for vitamins, but not for Walter. It's for the wife, Ethel, who he says doesn't look too well. Spoiler alert, this heavy foreshadowing goes nowhere. She's not actually sick. She does prove that she is a saint, though, by continuing to pamper her pathetic and obnoxious husband, but her true feelings come out nevertheless.
Get out of here. Let me die in peace.
All right, Walter.
What?
Walter then demands to know the meaning of life and death before Ethel, exhausted, leaves him alone. As Walter lays down to rest, he pleads with no one in particular about needing more life, but he doesn't have Tyrell around to murder to make his point. Instead, he is visited by a man calling himself Mr. Cadwallader, and Walter waits a few beats to make sure his double take is maximally entertaining. Cadwallader starts making a proposition about giving Walter immortality, and Walter, unlike Martin from the last episode, catches on very quickly that Cadwallader is, in fact, the devil, here to bargain for the man's soul.
You're the devil. At your service.
Walter is naturally skeptical, but Cadwallader is a slick salesman, quickly getting Walter's attention for what seems like a deeply one-sided deal. After all, how can the devil claim his soul if he can never die? Just before Walter can agree to the deal, though, Cadwallader mentions an additional detail, an escape clause, whereby if Walter, for whatever reason, no longer wants to live, the devil will let him die. And this is why I love the Twilight Zone. There's so many potential twists here. Is his wife gonna die and leave him all sad and lonely? Are we gonna fast forward to some distant future where he's just completely bored with life? Is he gonna age physically but not mentally and start walking around like a zombie? Or is there gonna be some other unforeseen but logical consequence that we don't see coming? Walter and Cadwallader seal the deal by respectively signing and scorching a legal contract, and then Walter decides to test out his new power over death. Turns out, nothing can harm him or kill him, not even jumping in front of a speeding subway train. So that's how he survives the Andromeda Strain. Unfortunately, he feels no thrill, no excitement, nothing. Being immortal, he discovers, is just plain boring, even when he collects a bunch of insurance claims for his various quote-unquote accidents. After drinking ammonia in front of Ethel, Walter tells his wife he's going to jump off the top of the building. She tries to stop him, and, after Walter nearly spoils the surprise by calling her a pancake,
Ethel, you are a potato pancake.
Ethel falls to her death. Rather than finding this tragic and getting upset over the loss of his spouse, he sees it as an opportunity to experience something new, the electric chair. He goes to trial and does his best to get sentenced to death, much to the bemusement of his lawyer. But the lawyer does his job, and rather than getting the chair, Walter is sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Unable to face the prospect of eternity in prison, he calls on the devil to grant him release, so that he can face the prospect of eternity in the fires of hell. So, with the escape clause activated, he dies of a sudden heart attack, probably ruining the reputation of the doctor who kept saying Walter was the healthiest patient he ever had. This is a really fun episode because even though it fits into the mold of the Twilight Zone, it encourages you not to take it too seriously. It's a comic tragedy that uses a familiar template, the deal with the devil, but it doesn't feel cliché, mostly because of the great characterization of Cadwallader and the endlessly amusing performance by Thomas Gomez.
In fact, something less than minor, insignificant, infinitesimal, microscopic, teensy-weensy.
And that's all I have on walking distance and escape clause. Now, as always, do all those YouTubey things, check out my Patreon, and all that other good stuff. But until next time, this is the Unapologetic Geek telling you to never be ashamed of what you love, as long as you're not hurting anybody.
I don't understand it either. Thank you and good night.